Hello, I'm Pablo, and welcome to episode 6 of my composition journey. This episode is going to be a little different from the others because I won't be sharing the writing process. It's already done. So before I get into the composition itself, I want to share the story of the last month or so trying to write this thing. I knew the midterm was coming pretty much day one, and I knew, what I wanted to do pretty much day one, but actually putting pen to paper was very difficult. Normally I like to just sit down, turn on the camera, and start writing notes haphazardly, just not really too worried, just want to make something for whatever assignments due that day. This was different because I actually felt this one had stakes. I wanted this one to be good, and for like the first 2 weeks, I pretty much sat down at the piano, had some kind of inkling of idea, tried to spend some time developing it, and ended up tossing it completely. Absolutely nothing was sticking. 2 weeks ago, I also had a progress report in my composition class where we'd all share how it was going, and I was not going to show up empty-handed. So I sat down the night before and something finally worked out. I knew I was going to stick to an established form like the Sonata to keep things at least somewhat realistic. I was able to write the 2 contrasting themes of the Sonata, which accounted for about the first page and a half of the piece, and I went to class and presented it, and it sounded something like this. Let me pull up the work in progress file. So this is what I had when it started. So it's just this theme with the left hands, some variation on the first theme, and then I wrote the second theme. So let me play it. Second theme. So I didn't know where to really go from the second theme from there, but I had the second theme, and then this was kind of like a concluding section for the exposition and for the finale, stuff like that. So just kind of an idea. That's what I had to show at the time. I honestly thought it was the bare minimum for a progress report. The other students' progress reports went very smoothly. Most of them did what I couldn't. They kept it simple. A lot of them wrote pleasant melodies for melodic instruments like the trumpet or the violin or the saxophone and kept it within the realm of the class, which in reality it's just an intro class, right? It's an intro to composition class. Unfortunately, I have a special brand of brain damage called delusions of grandeur. And sometimes spontaneously it leads me down into ambition spiraling, where cool ideas end up inflated to like 20 times their original size. If my past is anything to go by, it usually blows up or never happens. That's usually how it goes. It sucks, but like 1 in 10 times, it's glorious. It works. And those are the moments I live for. That's kind of where I ended up here. Back to the actual, process. Despite having a good starting place now and, another 2 weeks to finish it, I still had the worst writer's block known to man. It was actually crazy. I just couldn't find a natural continuation to the second theme. No idea how to continue the exposition. No idea where to even start for the development section. Sat down several times to get the ball rolling. Just never happened. It was George R. Martin level writer's block, like terrible. Until the night before. And all of a sudden, the clouds opened up. And out of the heavens, the music poured out. I was actually writing, finally, after weeks. And at the end of like 9 hours, locked in, completely tweaking in the middle of the night, in a session that lasted from like 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., I had like 95% of it finished. The development still needed a little work. When I went to sleep, I had lost steam, and I was like, okay, it's close enough. but it could be considered finished. So I printed out what I had to just show the teacher in the class. Obviously, it wasn't due till midnight, but I wanted to like at least show him like, hey, like, look, I finally did it. It was nice to feel that. So after I got home from class, took like a 4-hour nap, reoriented myself, and I realized I still had like 6 hours to keep going. So I sat down. I finished the development in like half an hour. It didn't take too much work. It was just naturally getting from the variations to back to the recapitulation. I did the title page, some program notes, did the written part. Somehow getting it on time in a state that was like finished, that I'd consider finished. Obviously, I might revisit it in the future, make some revisions, but this is really a proper draft and is genuinely the first piece of piano music I've ever written. So let's get into what I just submitted. This is what I ended up turning in. If you're wondering about the name, so let's get into that first. So I kind of wrote a little blurb in the program notes. So these program notes are supposed to go like if it's ever programmed in a concert or something, like these are notes put next to the piece. The name is obviously in German, but it's kind of a joke on like Beethoven or whatever, because his most famous, like his grandest, most famous sonata is called Hammerklavier. If you translate that, that's just like pianoforte, because I think they just refer it to clavier now. It's kind of lazy like as a name, and a lot of classical composers you see they just like don't even name their pieces. It's just like sonata in whatever key it's in this case it was sonata for the piano, and it was just like, wow, thank you for that name. I decided to name it after the German greatsword. It looks kind of like this. I just mocked this up in Illustrator. It's just a big two-handed sword or whatever. So, and in German, it's just called Zweihander, is the two-hander, right? The joke is it's called a piano sonata for two hands. So that's what this is. Piano sonata for two hands. I thought it was funny. But anyways, onto the piece. I managed to write a lot. Actually, it was like 10 pages. It was significant. I'm just gonna play it, and I'll pause it intermittently to kind of get an idea for what parts are kind of going on. So, okay, so this is the intro. It's just the left hand, so that's something I wanted to do. I wanted to have a theme in the left hand and a theme in the right hand. So kind of also going with the name, right? Like two hands. Beginning part is mostly the same as it was. So here I go to E flat instead of B flat. It's the 6 chord instead of the 3 chord because of the because I'm saving the 3 chord for the recapitulation. Yeah, so before I continue here, so this part was where I finally was able to start writing. So it started actually with this theme here. So let's actually continue here. So it's kind of building here. So I had an idea for this, right? For this, these kind of. And I kind of just worked backward from there. I was looking at this rhythmically, right? Because I wasn't sure how I was going to do it melodically. So I'm like, rhythmically. So let's just start in the bass. So, you see the same rhythm here in the bass. And then I started just putting some chords. So I kind of just started working backwards. I kind of had this rhythmic figure. And I decided, okay, is there a way to introduce that before? And I kind of had this left hand accompaniment for the second theme to be straight eighth notes, and I kind of decided to introduce it in the left hand there. So I think it does a good job of kind of like showing it, and getting to that point where it's like it's more of a steady transition instead of just, oh yeah, here's a piece of music and then let me just copy paste another piece of music. I think it I actually think it worked quite nice. So I'm going to continue from the transition here, and we'll keep going. Let's talk about the end of the exposition here. Kind of just logically, so it kind of already, you're kind of getting like a faster texture of like, these are 16th notes, right? And then I was always thinking how like there's always some part, especially if you're looking at Beethoven sonatas, or there's some kind of moving line or whatever. So I kind of wanted to do that, and it just very naturally kind of continued. You get this kind of pattern, and it's coming down, kind of going through different chords. And then this part, I'm kind of extending this cadence from, I don't exactly remember what chord this was. To be honest, I haven't like harmonically analyzed this. I just kind of wrote what sounded good. I think that's what most people should do. Maybe at some point I'll look at this. Kind of extend this cadence, and then I do this triplet thing to kind of really accelerate into it. And then this is the same ending theme I showed in the progress report. Again, it's just kind of this cascading. It's just a big cadence, and it sounds very resolute. Okay, and then you get to this big like D flat major chord, and there's different places it could go. So the first ending comes back to D major, which is the 5 chord, and now we're back in G minor. Now into the second ending. Okay. So this is the same exact theme from the beginning, but now it's in F sharp minor. And because again, it's that D flat major chord, which kind of works like a C sharp major, right? It's the same enharmonic equivalence or whatever. So that's the 5 chord to the F sharp. So as far as the beginning of the development section, again, I restated the first theme, and I'm kind of doing variations on theme 1, right? So it's kind of gradual crescendo into this really big chords, kind of following the cadence of the first theme. And then you kind of get into this section where it's just kind of big chords on the right hand, and then on the left hand you have that kind of like triplet, with the octaves and stuff like that. It's not really well represented by the MIDI. It sounds kind of bangy. It's more of a like a flowing kind of stormy texture for that. Kind of just going through different chords. I haven't really looked at these. The development section is definitely the section I'd revise the most if I had to. Like, look at this again. I think what I have works for the most part. You're kind of just going through, and then again, same triplet thing, kind of reaching like a polyrhythmic 3/2 here, and then climbing up to here, which is kind of like a local climax. Let's continue this section. So start from here. So D, and then B flat. And this transitions back to the recapitulation. The end of the development section. So this is the part I wrote the day after, right before it was due. So I pretty much ended here, and then I found some ugly cadence back to the main thing. So this is what I wrote. Now we're back. Again, we're out of this key. We're back to what looks like home. Now I'm kind of combining theme 1 with theme 2, right? So you still have the left hand kind of variation, or with the triplets and stuff like that. Again, a lot softer, kind of just creating like a gentle, or not like a gentle, but just like a background texture. And then bum ba da da dum, bum ba da da dum. It's kind of in major now, and it's kind of hearkening to the second theme, right? So kind of mixing both themes there. Doing a kind of a major variation of the first theme, which is like that. And now I'm really doing a variation on the second theme, right? Just something very, again, with the triplet thing from the first theme. So I'm trying to like create something gentle with both themes, because this piece definitely is kind of fast and it goes. So having a moment of levity, I think, is like important. So yeah, so here we make our way back home to D, but it doesn't feel shoehorned in. It feels more natural. So D. So that's the development section. Okay, so let's. And back to the recapitulation. So now second theme, but we go to the B flat with the proper 3 chord. And the rest of the recapitulation, again, yeah, I didn't really have, well, I had plenty of time, but I didn't have a lot of time. So most of the recapitulation is the exposition transposed into the final key, right? Okay, so this is the ending sequence, and then I'm gonna let the full coda kind of play out. But this is the ending section. So I basically just started out here as normal, just like big chords, right, octaves, stuff like that. And then here I repeat it, and I kind of start like increasing intensity, and kind of gets into some big arpeggios and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna play it from here, and we're going to listen to the end. So that's pretty much the piece. At the end of the coda here, we go from this cascading theme into, so again, you kind of come up here to this big big arpeggio, like these sweeping arpeggios and stuff like that, with a little bit of like dubious cadence. I forget what they call it, but where it's not just like exactly what's written, because it kind of just goes. It's trying to build, right? You're not gonna just end it early. This has some of the some like big octave runs and stuff like that. That's yeah. There's some small things that like again like little errors, little engraving errors, little things that it's like, oh, I put the wrong accidental, little things that it's like, okay, I can improve, but for the most part, I think it's pretty cool. And then this is kind of like it's kind of like the end of the Passionata, Sonata number 23. And then yeah, just a 1, 5, 5, 7, 1. Just a nice, clean, big, you know, this is the ending. Okay, that's what I turned in, and I packaged it up in a nice little PDF. I made this this title page that I still think is hilarious. I don't know, it's just dramatic. So now comes the part that I didn't plan for at all. You see, one of the main parts of this composition project, as opposed to like just the basic assignments I've been uploading on the channel, is that I have to perform and record it, or it has to be performed and recorded in some way. It's an important part of the project, gets the composer a feel for like, you know, all parts of the project, and getting it played is an important part of it. My classmates knew this and planned accordingly. Unfortunately, since the performer I chose was me, I didn't think very hard about the deadline or the feasibility of the performance. Yeah, it's Saturday morning when I'm recording this, but I've already kind of started playing through it. It's not easy. This video is 100% going to be up on Sunday night, and I'm going to email it to my professor, turn in the performance, and I get to present it on Monday. So what am I going to do? Obviously, I've played some difficult piano repertoire over the years, and what I wrote was within, you know, reasonably within my playing abilities. And from what I've, you know, at least sat down and looked at, I think so. But this is the kind of piece I'd spend a couple months working on before playing it. I've had, or I will have, 4 days in total, you know, if I have to turn it on Sunday. So since there's no way I'm getting a straight ahead, proper professional sounding recording of this in like 4 days, I have to cheat a little bit. So I guess I'll cut to practice room. So here I am at the practice room. It is Saturday night, which means it's the third day I've kind of had to read through this piece and to kind of look at stuff. I think it's time to call it. So I'll share with you some of my thoughts that I've had while playing this, or at least while reading through what I've written. So I think a lot of it works. Some of it doesn't really work, and that's mostly due to the fact that I didn't really write this at the piano, right? So I came up with some of the ideas at the piano. I definitely used the keyboard in my room, but most of this I wrote at the editor, right? In a lot of ways, I think that's a good thing. It helps you use your ear, helps you audiate, prevents you from kind of, you know, falling back on your muscle memory, playing the same sort of stuff. But it does mean that some things are going to be a little awkward. And in another vein, there are small little, you know, errors. You know, obviously there's no errors in music, but small little harmonic things I wouldn't have done if I was actually at the piano. Things I would change, things that I call them typos. You know, unintentional little surprises. But either way, from the actual composition, this piece is hard. It's not something I can play in just 4 days. I've been able to play some of these sections slowly, and I'm really happy with how they sound, actually, you know, really getting to the real instrument. But truth is, my original plan of kind of learning a section, cutting it, learning another section, cutting it, and, you know, if I was missing any sections, I could cut in some MIDI recording. It was going to be a little janky, and I just don't see the point. So I understand this is a requirement for the project, but honestly, I'm willing to just take the L. You know, I'm taking this class because I wanted experience writing music, and this was an amazing experience writing music. I'm having a blast in the class, but, you know, I'm not necessarily taking it for the grade, if you understand me. So I just had the idea, while just, you know, while just practicing some of this, that I would just make a decent MIDI file, and I'll put one of those really popular visualizers that used to be around, years ago for those like piano videos, just so I have something to present, something that's entertaining for people to watch. But there will absolutely be a return to this at some point. I will have a part 2 to this, obviously nothing to do with the class, but just on my own, and I will revise this, I will play this, and I will also let you guys download the sheet music and try it out for yourself. So without further ado, the performance. So that was my midterm piece. I'm finally done for now. Not really much more to say about the piece itself. Like, pretty satisfied with what I've done. Again, I do intend on coming back to this in the near future. I really do want to play this. This is something I've kind of really wanted to do for a long time, so let me explain. I really do love classical music. I listen to it often, and I've been knee deep in that world for quite some time. But it just felt weird to me that outside of obviously like the film scoring industry and some other obscure corners, you just don't see a lot of new like classical music being written, enjoyed the same way that other genres are. I'm a big metalhead. I go through phases where it's like all I listen to, and all of my favorite bands write and release their own music. When Gojira released Fortitude and went on tour with Mastodon, I grabbed my friend and went and saw them. And guess what? It was an amazing show. All of the music was original music they could call their own, you know. And compared to the best classical musicians I see, they are some of the most technically proficient players I have ever heard. But at the same time, you know, I've probably heard hundreds of classical performances. And out of all those times, I've only heard a handful of new premieres. And of those premieres, none of them were composed by the player. It was always, you know, some other composer or, you know, some other arrangement. You know, you think back to the 18th and 19th century when all of these like classical repertoire was written. When you went to hear a virtuoso like Franz Liszt, you heard Franz Liszt play. You heard Franz Liszt music. Nowadays, the most famous classical virtuosos, like I couldn't tell you an original piece they're known for, because they all are known for recordings of stuff that was written almost 200 years ago. And that's not because their original stuff is bad, it's because most of them just don't write at all. The only exceptions I'm like kind of aware of are different versions of the Hungarian Rhapsody. It's a very famous Franz Liszt solo. I know Horowitz, Vladimir Horowitz, very famous piano player. He's very famous for playing his own version of that piece. More recently, you had the Hamelin cadenza, the Marc-Andre Hamelin. He played his own cadenza, and that was famous. But if you look at the piece, like it literally on the penultimate page invites you to play a cadenza. Even in that kind of case, they're not really playing too far outside of what's written. The point is that writing my own music and playing it is my goal. And I think if anyone watching is a classical musician, really ponder that, you know, if you haven't thought about it, because I think it's something special and it's kind of dying, or maybe it is dead and needs to be revived, but it's kind of a missing part of our art form that I definitely think would be amazing if it was, you know, a part of it again, because it used to be. So anyways, tangent over, I guess. Just wanted to share those thoughts. Next episode will be back to the usual. I have a short MIDI sequencing assignment, and I already filmed it, but I wrote something short and fun. So I think that's all for this one. Hope you enjoyed.